Do you want to win more deals at the prices you want? Of course you do. And I'm about to share with you why you aren't. I'm Lee Salz, sales management strategist and best-selling author with a new Lee's lesson to win more deals at the prices you want. Let me tell you a story. In 2004, I moved to Minnesota from the Washington, D.C. metro area with my wife, 3 kids, and 2 dogs. One of the first things I did was put up a fence so the dogs could run around and, well, do their business. Now, from November to March in Minnesota, I don't pick it up. Now, before you say, ew, that's disgusting, remember where I live. We're talking feet of snow and temperatures in the minus 20s and 30s. I'm not going out there. So every spring, I hired a company to do a spring cleanup. Who would have thought this is a business? And when they came, it was always a great day. My yard went from a biological hazard to pristine. But there was always one thing about the service that bothered me. They'd pick up all the dog poop and leave giant bags of it on the side of my home left for me to discard. So I'd pick up these big bags and put them in the garbage cans in my garage. Now it starts to thaw, so you can imagine what my garage smelled like. So a few years ago, I reached out to schedule the annual spring cleanup, but they didn't respond. And around the same time, I received a postcard from a competitor offering the exact same service at the exact same price. Who would have thought this is a competitive business? So I hired the competitor. So the guy comes out, does the job, and he's leaving. And I poke my head out the door and I say, hey, what are you doing? And he looks at me like I'm crazy and says, what do you mean, what am I doing? I finished. I said, yes, but you're taking the bags with you. He said, yeah, that's what we do. I said, oh my gosh, you take the poop? That didn't just make my day, it made my week. So later that afternoon, the owner calls to check in on the service, and I told him everything went well. But I asked him one question. Do you compete with this other company? He said, oh yeah, we run into them all the time. So I asked him, do you know what your biggest differentiator is compared to them? Silence. He couldn't think of one. So I said, you take the poop. He said, oh yeah, I think I knew that. And I said, you need to be talking about that differentiator when selling your service by asking a question like, what are your expectations with respect to discarding of the waste after we pick it up? Because industry standard, now this is an industry, was to leave it for the homeowner to deal with. Now, remember I mentioned that postcard that appeared to offer the same service for the same price? But was this really the same service? No! I would have paid more for this service. See, I see this issue all the time in sales organizations. They have differentiators, but they aren't effectively positioning them when selling. And what happens as a result? The prospect perceives sameness, which means the only way you win the deal is to drop your prices and sacrifice margins unnecessarily. For each of your differentiators, develop positioning questions. These are open-ended, non-yes-no questions that lead prospects to think differently about the solutions they have or could have and spark interest in a conversation about your differentiators. The question, what are your expectations with respect to discarding of the waste after we pick it up, is an example of a positioning question that sparks interest in this differentiator, which can lock out the competition and position you to win more deals at the prices you want. Learn more questioning strategies in my new best-selling book, The First Meeting Differentiator. Order your copy on Amazon today. This is Lee Salz, building salespeople into world-class sales forces.